Beneath that is a Madonna and a child. On the back of the hand are symbols of all the astrological gods. These hands were extended to the initiates, and it was believed that energy arced from these hands and flooded them, giving them a cosmic rebirth. It's an amazing thing to see this hand in the Christian church. It's an abomination to God. It represents the 666 God, the rulership of the zodiac. And even today, in a modern age, there are priests and popes that still show this satanic sign. Another form of that sign is this ancient symbol of the male generative organ from this altar in Mesopotamia, or from the head of this Babylonian genie god. You see this fleur-de-lis, as we call it today. Here on the head of Isis, the fleur-de-lis, or on the symbol of Bacchus, the sexual force in nature. But you'll see it on lamps and on altars within the Roman Church today. The holding of the lightning bolt can be depicted as holding fire, as Zeus throws his lightning bolt here. But the church is shown in Chiesa del Gesù, the Church of the Jesuit, holding a lightning bolt as well. This Mithraic lightning bolt shows arrows. Arrows, universally, are a symbol of the forces of nature, the sexual energy. Here Krishna holds an arrow in his hand, and this Greek doctor in an Asclepian temple holds an arrow in his hand as a symbol of the healing forces of nature. This boundary stone from Mesopotamia shows that arrowhead as the god himself, and we know that these arrows were kept to protect the people from what they believed to be the evil forces. The Romans made an arrowhead out of iron and used it to sacrifice their offerings to the sun god with. It was this satanic symbol that Jesus was crucified with. But the church adopted it because it was pagan, and now it's used as a symbol of deity in the church and worshipped on altars and floors. This chalice shows 3 of these pagan arrows holding up the cup. And the Chiesa del Gesù, we see an arrow through a symbol of the female womb with a serpent with its tail in its mouth around it. This monstrance in one of the Catholic treasuries shows arrows in and out of it, representing the energies that emanate from the wafer. The ancients worshipped the evergreen tree as a symbol of deity. In Mesopotamia, they worshipped the palm tree as a symbol of the rebirth of life. That symbolism is adopted in the Greek and in the Roman religion, and now we find it on the floors and on the altars and graves of the Roman Catholic Church. Another form of this rebirth is a symbol of the pine cone. This pine cone can be seen in reliefs all over Mesopotamia, held by the genii or demon gods. It represents Osiris in Egypt. We see him here holding a staff with pine cones on the end of it. In the Cairo Museum, Tutankhamun holds a pine cone staff as a symbol of his power to rule, and this Hindu god is carrying a pine cone in his hand. Even Quetzalcoatl, with an evergreen tree on one side, is holding pine cones on the other, as is this Greek fertility goddess. The pine cone was adopted by the Romans, and here we see this Mithraic altar with a pine cone in the middle of the equilateral triangle, as well as on a Roman grave. Bacchus is shown with a pine cone staff, a symbol of the sexual organ of the male. And here Dionysius, from the Greek worship of the generative principle, is carrying a pine cone staff on these reliefs. From the Pantheon, we find a great statue of Dionysius there in Rome, held in his hand a great pine cone. Early in the Christian history, they adopted the pine cone as a symbol of life, and we find it everywhere throughout the churches. This ancient symbol of the sexual organs is to be found not only in the church artwork, but the largest one of them is found at a court called the Corte de Pena at the Vatican, the largest pine cone in the world, 2 stories tall. The Pope carries a pine cone staff, much as the pagan deities did anciently, and carries it with him as he travels throughout this world. The bull was a symbol of the fertilizing power of the sun, and the generative organs were worshipped in Rome under the name of Priapus, under the name of Min in Egypt. A form of the generative worship was the worship of the phallus of Osiris. It was placed before the temples in Egypt, and as the sun rose, the shadow of that entered into the temples, representing the fertilizing power of the sun on the womb of the earth. We see from the Muslim religion that this concept of these towers was adopted, and at the Vatican today, one of those symbols of Osiris is placed in the court before the temple of St. Peter's Basilica in the same form as it was in the pagan world. We know that pillars in the pagan temples represented the union of heaven with earth. It was a generative symbol as well, and this has been duplicated in Bernini's colonnade around the Vatican courtyard. Spires are seen in churches all over, and they are a duplication of the ancient worship of Priapus, the generative principle. In the Orient, the energies are symbolized by yin and yang, positive and negative energies. It's represented here in this head of Bacchus, two heads, two different sides of the one god. This Mayan god shows a black and a white feather on his head, a symbol of good and evil, positive and negative, male and female, as in this Mexican sand painting, or in this Hindu Tantra. This Roman floor reflects the same dualism of God in their religion. Masonry has adopted it, and in their initiation floors, they have black and white alternating tiles to represent that God is both good and evil. At the Rosicrucian Temple in San Jose, the initiates are initiated on this alternating black and white floor. In ancient Babylon, the courts of the temple there had alternating black and white tiles as well, as they worshiped the one God as both good and evil. And it's shocking to see that the majority of the floors of the old cathedrals of Europe have the black and white alternating tiles underneath their altars as well. The god of darkness, the god of mystery, the god of evil, was the mystery god, Stur, Saturnus. In Babylon, the first god was Nimrod, and he was of a black skin. His name was Ethiopus, or son of Cush. Osiris, which was the same legend but in Egypt, was a black god as well. We see that throughout the pagan world, many gods are depicted as being black, such as Vishnu in the Hindu religion, and Krishna, the supreme manifestation of the Hindu deity. Going back to the Vatican, we'll find that there Peter is black as well. As the foundation of the ancient Babylonian system was black, so the foundation of the modern one is as well. Kissing the feet in pagan idolatry symbolized the worship of God. We find in the Hindu religion they kissed the feet of their spiritual masters and believed that vital force and energy would flow through these pictures and carvings of feet. In a Hindu temple, we watched people kissing these feet, and it was explained to us that these were the lotus feet, and they received energy from that. But as I was in the St. Peter's Basilica and saw people lined up to kiss the feet of Peter there, I realized that even the foot kissing had been adopted into the system of Roman Catholicism. The holding of the keys was pagan in origin. It represented the one that opened up the light and closed the world of darkness. The Pope claims to have that power today. It was first given to him in the 4th century in a dream where Janus and Sibyl, the pagan gods, came and gave him the keys. This omnipotent power that's claimed for the Pope gives him the authority over the world of hell, a religious teaching that was adopted to keep the people in abject terror and fear. It has no origin in Christianity. It is believed that the Pope has the power to release these people from hell if he would like to. But as we go back into the system of pagan idolatry, we will find that every culture had their form of hell, from the Orient to the Babylonian world. There's nothing new about eternal burning hell. The pagans often symbolized the departed spirits of the dead as birds. They saw the eagle flying above the heaven, and to them it was an excellent symbol of the departed spirit. And we see this concept of the eagle carved on tombs and graves. The great phoenix represented the rising of the sun, and the double-headed phoenix represents the supreme aspect of God, that he's both good and evil. The winged spirit here represented that man's departed spirit ascending into the heavens. And in the churches, we see these birds everywhere. The phoenix is often seen as carrying the scriptures on its back. These birds have no place in the churches, but over and over again they are placed on altars, such as this pelican feeding her young. What does the pelican mean anyway? Well, in manly